Nation. The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
Welcome to another stocked and loaded episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important hobby news, discussions, debates, opinions, info, and interviews with key hobby and sports dignitaries. Also, if you're good, you know we are going to give away something. Now, here's the guy that wanted the cards more than the gum. John Newman.
Here's Johnny.
What is up? We are back to Not Live, episode 101. We hope you enjoyed episode 100, whether you listened to it live or you saw it or you listened to it, the audio, which I released a week afterwards. So either way, we thank you for giving your time. Hopefully you were one of those 13 people that won a prize. Congrats to Matt Sherman, who took down the $100 giveaway. Someone asked me when's going to be the next big giveaway. We kind of did that some ways back with, I believe it was episode 50, and now 100. I don't know. That's probably going to be the biggest one for a while, like that, on that level. We try to give away stuff every week, so that will continue, but a mega giveaway is what I would call that. Probably, I don't know when. So we'll see. But again, giveaways every week like we try to do. That won't change. Again, first time we ever went live, I thought it went fairly well. Couple hiccups here and there as to be expected. But it went well enough, folks, where I'm probably going to do a live Sports Card Nation every once in a while. And I think it'll just really hinge on when I can schedule an interview. If I can schedule an interview closer to Thursday or Friday, that's when I'll probably do a Sports Card Nation live. And because I want to kind of put the whole thing together and get it all done in one night like that. So we'll see. Definitely won't be the last time we do it. It was definitely fun. Again, I want to thank Dr. Beckett, Brody the Kid, and Drew Herndon for joining the show. And a lot of people in the chat room giving, congratulations and props for 100 episodes. And I want to, whether you did it in that chat room or you sent it in DM, PM, or posted it publicly, that stuff really means a lot to us. And I appreciate it. Really puts a gas in my tank that keeps this show moving forward. So we're not going to miss a beat. We sort of took a week off, but then I used that week off to publish the audio from episode 100. So we're going to keep going. This is episode, obviously, 101. We got another great guest, Mr. Matt Greaney. He's the co-owner of MySlabs.com, a site that sells where you can list your graded cards and your wax that you have available to sell. Full disclosure, I've done very well on that site. I wanted to have Matt on to talk about his history, how that site came about. He was kind of a little, I don't want to say gun shy, but he's a busy guy. So we did a lot of email tagging to make it happen. And here he is on episode 101. Great gentleman, and going to explain really how this site came to be. They are not a sponsor, but I will tell you I've done very well on that site and highly recommend it. Speaking of websites, we have revamped the Sports Card Nation podcast website, found at www.sportscardnation.net. Not a ton of changes. We cleaned it up a little bit, different kind of theme. And we also added a LCS directory, a card store directory. Absolutely free. So if you are a card store owner, a brick and mortar, free advertising, PM me, email me, public post to me your address and phone number and name of your store, and we'll get it on our LCS directory absolutely free, no charge, no strings attached. There's no funny business. I decided to make one page. If you have a store, list it. Anyone can kind of go look and see the store, where it is. And again, card stores are a huge thing to me as a former card store owner. And so if you have one and you want some free advertisement, here's your chance. Very simple. Reach out to me. Give me the name of the store, the address, phone number, website, whatever you want to list. And we'll put it on our website, Sports Card Nation Podcast. No strings attached. Absolutely free. So with that being said, let's not dawdle. Let's get this thing underway. Time for this week's
Incoming!
product releases. All right, 9 releases this week in the world of sports and non-sports. Starting today on the 13th, 2020, Topps Major League Soccer. Also today, 2020-21, Panini Prism Draft Picks Choice Collegiate Basketball. Staying with today, 4 releases in total. Also, 2020 Leaf Ultimate Draft Baseball. And 2020-2021 Panini Prism Draft Picks Fast Break Collegiate Basketball. On the 18th, 2020 Panini Prism No Huddle Football. Also on the 18th, 2020 Panini Rookies and Stars Football. On the 18th as well, 2019 and 20 Panini Immaculate Basketball. Also on the 18th, 2020, 2021, Upper Deck Series 1 Hockey. Amazing, that's coming out already. Also on the 18th, 2020, 21, Upper Deck Series 1 Hockey Blaster in retail. And so that's your calendar for this week. And, I guess this whole pandemic's got me all screwed up. But, again, it seems like hockey just ended. And yet here we go with next year's rookie class in 2021 hockey. If you pull any Alexis Lafreniere, hit me up. That's my guy as a Ranger fan. Him and Kako. So, but there you go for the week. All right, guys. Happy to talk about a new sponsor of the program, Manscaped.com. They are the number one grooming company in below-the-belt grooming for men. As we all know, if you're a man and you're hearing this, very important. They sent me this beautiful kit. Had crop cleanser in it, crop preserver, crop reviver, the lawnmower 2.0, which is a trimmer for below the belt, and the plow. And so they also sent me some apparel, a shirt, some shirts, some underwear. And each week here I'm going to talk about 2 of the products because for the sake of time. But great kit, great products. I will tell you this. I've used everything so far, but again, I'm going to talk about 2 things each week. This week, I want to talk about the shirt. Nice cotton shirt, real comfortable, nice to wear out in public, around the house. I did some lawn work with it on, very comfortable. Felt like almost like an Under Armour shirt. Feel to it. And then I used one of the products. I used the Crop Reviver, which is a below the belt kind of toner. The spray goes on nice and smooth, dries quick, and I would describe the scent. I have it in my hands here. Is sort of a piney, sort of a foresty. It's a manly scent, sort of a musk pine. Again, sprayed it down below, dried quick, and listen, you got to take care of yourself below the belt as well as above the belt. Check them out at manscaped.com, and to get 20% off your order, use the code SCN20. That's all caps, SCN20. That's manscaped.com. They save balls. It's time for What's Cracking.
This week's lead.
All right, I think the lead story has to be Topps Montgomery Club 582. They opened up renewals for those of us that were members last year, or so we thought. I went on to renew my Montgomery membership and said, swing and a miss, sorry you missed out. And so one of the perks of the membership is you get first crack at renewal. And so this happened to a lot of people, not just me. And so a lot of people were upset. I was disappointed. I kind of held out a little bit of reserve judgment, hoping that it was just kind of a fluky thing they would fix. But then it became out that other people who were not already members had accessed an early link and had signed up, where those of us that were members got that swing and a miss message. And so a lot of the hobby was in an uproar. I was, wondering how do you do that, right? Another, faux pas by Topps. Not their first. 2020 hasn't been kind in the website antics with the company this year, as great a year as they're having overall. And, I posted something on my social media, are you going to fix this? What are we doing? Not a good look, that sort of thing. Hashtag do better. And, the very next day, I got a message from a few people who said, hey, use the first link you got. It should work now. And so I tried that, still had it in my inbox, and still got the same message. And so now I'm like, maybe I'm not going to get a Montgomery 582 membership in 2021. And then on not the next day, but the very next day, so 2 days after the initial link that we were supposed to renew, they did send a new email and use that link. And so I went to purchase the renewal, $200, with the existing credit card I had in there. And it was giving me that spinning wheel, like it didn't go through. And so I waited a couple minutes thinking, well, maybe they're just busy. The servers are just overwhelmed. And so I waited a couple minutes. That wheel just kept spinning. I didn't get a confirmed, congratulations or, sale complete. And so I backed out, hit the back button, came back in, tried it again. Same thing happened. Waited a couple more minutes, backed out, came in a third time. And this time I switched to a different credit card that I have on file there. Hit submit, and rather quickly it said order process complete. And so I figured, well, the first card, maybe something happened that didn't go through to the bank connection and the second one worked. So a couple, glad I got a membership, left the room, checked my email a couple hours later, or an hour or two later, and saw, two confirmations on two Montgomery 582 renewals. So I'm thinking, well, now I got two renewals. I mean, technically I only need one. And so I figured, well, I'll email them in an hour or two and, forget trying to reach them on the phone. And it was after hours at this point. I figured I'd email them, tell them I got billed twice, only need one, just reverse one of the transactions. And meant to send the email, got pulled in a different direction, and I didn't send it that day. So the next day I got to work. I start early at my job and logged on to my work computer with the intent to check it again, and if those two transactions were still there, to send that email. And this time when I went into my account and my orders, their system must have discovered both charges, and they did reverse one and keep one. So end of the day, I got my membership. But then I'm hearing now that the open offerings for people who aren't renewing was today, meaning Wednesday, and people had issues there where the transactions didn't go through. So Topps has got some issues as usual with their website, and I asked someone from Topps IT what's the problem, and here's what they said. Staying with the Topps stories, Topps of the Class is back. Kids, take your report cards to your local LCS if they participate in this, and you will get some specially designed Topps cards. What's neat about the ones I've seen, they are not like any of the existing designs. You know, a lot of times when Topps does these special releases, they use kind of the existing design and maybe add a logo or a special insignia. These are completely redesigned, which I think is a nice touch on their part. Staying with Topps, the Project 2020 is still going on as we come down the home stretch. It's, you can say what you want, but overall it's been a success for this year, but it's not over yet. Now Topps is doing prints of all the cards. I believe they're 16 by 20. You can get 2 editions. The unsigned to 99 version for $399, and the signed by the artist limited to 20 for $999. Topps has issued another collaboration set, this time with Uber collector Steve Aoki. Some people know him. So I've seen a lot of people on the message board. A lot of people don't, like saying, who's this guy? For those that don't know him, he's not super famous, but he is a DJ who has collaborated with a lot of famous artists and musicians, and famous for kind of getting into cards. I don't know if he's recently used to be and got back in, but real heavy on his Instagram. Buying some graded cards, breaks, and that sort of thing. And so Topps has reached out, and they have collaborated on the Aoki Topps, following in the heels of the Gary V, Harper, Lindor, Alonso, that sort of those box sets. And so I'm going to wait. I'm probably not going to get one of those. I am holding out, as I posted on Twitter, for the Betty White and Topps collaboration. I believe that should be done. I mean, it just makes perfect sense. You could have a subset, Golden Guys, people who win, players who win Golden Gloves.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road, back again.
All right, some hobby hockey news. Season is not as far away as you might believe as we get closer to December. And the hockey products are starting to come out. And I'm not talking about 19 and 20. I'm talking about 20 and 21. Upper Deck Series 1 with my guy, Alex Lafreniere, is out. By the time you're hearing this podcast, it has gone live. If you get any Alexis cards and you're reasonable, want to sell them to me, may have a buyer. That's me. I'm a huge Rangers guy. Although I got a feeling, who knows what these cards might be going for, number 1 pick. But I'll somehow get my hands on one or two. And also, Tim Hortons, their card series are now going live as well. Love the Tim Hortons series. The only problem is when I get them, it's when I went to the Toronto Expo last year. But I'll have to peruse the secondary markets and see if I can get any. Wish we had that, promotion here. We do have some sporadic Tim Hortons, but they do not participate, in, at least to my knowledge, in the card promotion on this side of the border. So I'll have to procure those on the secondary markets, but it should be available in that form. Panini America has announced, due to staff issues and pandemic obviously issues, there will be no Black Friday or Cyber Monday promotions in the year 2020. But did say they were hoping to return to 2021. So, I'm going to give them a pass. It's understandable with everything going on. You can't argue with that one too much. All right, PWE shippers, myself would be included with that, with some of my sports lot sales. The United States Postal Service has announced a new form of shipping in the PWE. The way I ship my PWEs now is I go to the front counter and send it non-machinable. That costs 70 cents. When you do it that way, there's absolutely no tracking. You might get a receipt after you pay for it, but there's no tracking to know when and what day they arrive or if they even arrive. And so anyone can say they didn't get it, even when they did. That's the chance you take. That's why you probably, there should be only a certain value up to that you send PWE. Mine is generally $10 and under, but that to each their own. But like I said, USPS has announced a new form of PWE tracking. And that's the key word, tracking, for 75 cents, which is only 5 cents more than I'm paying with the non-machinable. You're going to get everything the same, except now you have a tracking number to that envelope, PWE. And so I think that, I know I rag on USPS a lot sometimes with, the way they raise prices, things being slow, yada, yada, yada. But I got to give credit where credit's due. This is great. This is definitely something the hobby can use and needs, and I know for a fact I'll be using it for 5 cents more, just to know that piece of mail got to its destination, where before you had obviously no idea and just kind of crossed your fingers that, one, it got there, and number two, you weren't dealing with someone who would say they didn't get it when they did. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. They give you the tools that are needed to allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And they distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast. It's why I use it and why you should too. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Commence interview sequence.
All right, happy to have my next guest on the One of One Card Shop guest line. He's the co-owner of one of my favorite websites to buy and sell cards. We'll get into that in detail, but let me bring him on first. Mr. Matt Greaney, welcome to Sports Card Nation.
Hi, John. How you doing today?
Good. So, I want to, before we get into my slabs, which is, like I said, not lip service, that is one of my favorite platforms, kind of like, I know you've probably done it before, whether it be, in text or written form or verbal form, kind of your background in the hobby. When did you start? Is it the traditional story, kind of start when you were a kid, then get out and come back? Just kind of your card, your hobby background.
Well, I was an 80s baby, so that was pretty much when I think the card boom really took off. And, back then, when you say corner store, literally every corner had a store, even in the small towns. And they always had baseball cards. Baseball was a huge, huge sport growing up in Boston, in the Boston area. And so, I played baseball from a very young age. Mm-hmm. Loved the Red Sox. I'm talking probably 5 to 6 years old. Really, I started collecting around probably 5 to 6. I had an older brother that was into it. Just everywhere we turned back then, it was baseball. So, the 86, 87 top sets was probably when I really, really started trying to put the team sets together. My older brothers had, the older cards, the 70s, 60s, which just absolutely amazed me. So probably by 8 or 9, I was well aware of, Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, Babe Ruth, knew what the cards looked like. Beckett magazine was huge back then, so I'd always flip through and they'd have the hut section and, just the old cards at the top of the each year's listing. I just thought they were beautiful. So by early teens, I was into everything. Really, really loved vintage. But as a young kid, why wouldn't you like the flashy stuff? By then, I was collecting baseball, basketball, football, all the way through high school. By then, I understood that cards had a monetary value. I could use them as currency, so to speak. And really, it just kind of grew from there. I've always collected pretty much anything except for modern football. I don't do too much modern football now. I love vintage football still. It's just, for me, I had to narrow down some of it because there's just so much out there, and it's too much to keep track of. So, really, it's been a lifelong obsession, and I'd say it's pretty typical. Yeah.
So you stuck with it. Like, a lot of times you hear, high school comes, girls kind of take center stage, and or you go off to college, and mom and dad throw out, clean the garage, and the cards somehow are never to be seen again. You didn't have that version of the way you made it sound. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I actually can remember going on. I have 2 LCSs owned by the same gentleman in my area.
Okay.
They're amazing, amazing shops, and they're both within about 10 to 15 minutes drive in one direction or the other. I can remember heading over, my ex-girlfriend's house through high school, and stopping there before I went over there to open packs, and I'd show up, late or whatever, and I would. She was actually cool about it at the time. Like, she understood there was money involved. She kind of got into it for a little bit. She never gave me any gruff about it, so there was really no reason for me to stop doing that.
Yeah.
My parents, my father was actually kind of a unique situation. He loved baseball cards when he was a kid.
Yeah.
But his mother, my grandmother, did do what you were referring to. She threw them all out of the bottom drawer at one point.
Yeah.
But he knew there was something special about him because his next door neighbor that he grew up with, one of his best friends, they used to go around the neighborhood and trade all the 50s and 60s cards, and they'd put complete sets together.
Yeah.
But they'd want the best condition possible. And the gentleman next door to my father continued to do so, through the 70s. And he has a vault right now that is, is second to none with some of the most amazing cards you'd ever see. But he won't grade anything either. He just loves the old baseball cards. He has no idea about the modern market, doesn't get it.
Yeah.
He just loves the old baseball cards from when he was a kid. And, it's just astronomical what he has. It would blow most people away. And it kind of makes me wonder how many other situations are like that out there. Because if you would speak to the guy, he doesn't ever bring it up.
Yeah.
And you'd never know. But he's sitting on a wealth of cards, to say the least.
Yep, and he's old-fashioned, he's old school. All those terms that come to mind. Grading is just sort of a foreign entity to him. Maybe to you and I, we've embraced it. I remember when grading came out. I was in my store days, and I thought it was a fad. I was wrong. Have you ever? Speaking of this gentleman, have you ever had that conversation, like you should grade some of these, that it can actually make them actually more?
He's actually, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's fairly well off at this point. He did pretty well in life. I just don't think there's any interest there. He views them, I think, as artwork, and he loves the touch, he loves the smell. It was he was way ahead of his time in the sense that the stories that he and my father would tell, they would go around the neighborhood, and back then, neighborhoods were full of kids, and they all intermingled and so forth. And he would trade the nicest quality, the nicest centered, and this is way before condition ever came into the market. There was no market back then, but he would get the most pristine copies he could find, and he would store them away. And it was just amazing. I remember probably being 6 or 7 years old. I actually grew up in that same neighborhood as my father and his childhood friend grew up. He also had a son, so I became friends with the son, and he took me into one of the rooms in their home at one point because he knew I loved older baseball cards, and he started opening up bureau drawers, and it was just all sorted, sets. And he ended up giving me a 1970 Maury Wills that I thought was just the coolest thing ever. I didn't really understand value back then, but I just thought it was basically priceless. Just the coolest card I'd ever seen, and that really kind of threw everything into overdrive as far as the vintage collecting.
Yeah. And like you said, this gentleman was, in a sense, ahead of his time. Like other people were throwing them around, like my dad, putting them in bike spokes and beating them up, putting rubber bands around them, putting them in shoe boxes, and they're getting banged around. And he had the wherewithal, like you said, to kind of seek out the best quality condition ones, and those are what he has today. And like you said, he's sort of old school. The smells that we associate with old cards, and having them probably in your hand in that form, he's just accustomed to that. And but really nothing wrong with that, honestly. I mean, to each their. I've said on this show numerous times, to each their own. And even like I said, with grading, for me, it was sort of. I remember the first time I saw one, a customer brought it into my store and was telling me about it. I just thought it was the silliest thing. You send your card to someone else, you send money, they send it, they tell you what shape it's in and send it back encapsulated. And I remember the gentleman's name. His name was Ron. I won't say his last name. And I'm like, Ron, you could have paid me. I could have told you what condition that card was in. And he's like, no, you wouldn't have been able to slab it. And I'm like, no, but I really, it's funny looking back then to realize where it is now, and it's a huge, as you well know, it's a huge part of the hobby now. I think it's, I don't know what percentage we want to put on it, but, I know there's some facets that still don't like grading or against grading, but, when we see these astronomical amounts that are reached in auction for some of these iconic cards, one of the things they pretty much, most of the time, have in common, they're all graded, and they're great graded copies to bring that sort of amount. And it's, cards, whether people like to admit it or not, have become a viable asset class. We have a lot of celebrities now getting involved in the sports card hobby, and not shy to post on their social medias, their Instagram, their Twitters, advertising that they're now into cards and it's cool to them, and the list is getting longer really by the week of what kind of personalities are now into the hobby. And so grading, as you well know, we're going to talk, has really become a huge percent. I would probably, if someone asked me, Matt, like, what percentage of the grading, I'd almost have to say between 40 to 60% of the hobby, maybe more. Some might think that estimate's too low. We're going to get into my side. What would you say to that question? What percentage you think of the hobby sort of centers around now graded cards?
In terms of people that actually sub or send a group sub?
Well, I know it's a generic way to say maybe just overall transact. I mean, in other words, if grading didn't exist, maybe how many collectors would not do it, how many transactions would not take place, just sort of that a ballpark, would you say?
Well, I'm of the opinion that, first of all, I was like you in the beginning. I thought grading was silly because you send it away to a third party. You have no idea who the person is, what their qualifications are.
Yeah.
And they send it back and you just accept what it is. Well, obviously, that the industry pretty much agrees with that. So, 20 years ago, the thought process has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Whether people agree with grading, like grading, want to grade now, I know plenty of guys that are absolutely against it. They're purists. They don't like the idea of it, but they understand that grading saved the hobby.
Yeah.
Because originally, it did point out, the inadequacies in, counterfeit cards, cut cards, So in that regard, it really did save the industry. Now people are using it even if they don't want to, just to protect value. Because let's face it, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. If you hit a $10,000 card in a pack, or you have something that appreciates the $10,000, you don't want to drop the thing and bend the corner. So you're almost forced into using grading. And some people become addicted to it. They understand that, once that card gets a 9.5, a 10, black label, whatever, the card appreciates in seconds. Doubles, triples in value. So if I had to guess, I would say 60% is probably pretty low.
Yeah.
Being as active as I am in the Facebook rooms and so forth, even the smaller guys, the guys just getting in, are buying graded cards right off the bat because I know that's where the money is.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, and I could be way off just a shot in the dark, I'd say 75 to 80% without breaking a sweat. Have subbed, will sub, are using group subbers, because like I said, it's all about preserving your investment, even if you're a purist.
Yeah.
Some people see the light. I mean, if you had a 33 Gaudi Ruth sitting in front of you that looks like it's an 8, first and foremost, nobody's going to believe you it's real if it's raw. Second, if it is in fact an 8, you believe it'll be, crossed to an 8, that's a lot more money than you're going to get in raw form.
Yeah.
You have to grade it at that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a purist or not. The money is too good and too readily available not to do so at that point.
Yeah, and it's a great point you make. I agree wholeheartedly. And the other thing is, someone might say, "Well, I don't want it graded," but if there's always an end game. We're not always going to be here. People pass away, and we all have a lifespan. Depending on what that person, obviously, in the example you give with the 33 Gaudi route, what is the game plan for that card? Does that person want to just pass it down to a grandson, a son, another relative, or do they want to sell it at some point and kind of live, enjoy some of the fruits of the labor, so to speak? And if it's really like, hey, I do want to sell this eventually, grading, like you pointed out, actually you can make a case in both cases, even if they're going to pass it down. Now that's protected for whoever they're willing the card to, and so and that, like you said, a card like that you have to just for the asset value, to protect it, to keep it in the condition it's in, to authenticate it, like you said. Listen, I'm guilty of this myself. I'm sure I speak for you a little bit here. Anytime I see a vintage card that looks very clean and crisp, the first thought that pops in your mind, whether it's true or not, is like, is it Fugazi? Is it faked? Is it trimmed? It may not even be a fake. It might be real, but it might be altered, right? So it's not always just fakes. And so you're right. I think it's funny you mentioned that, because to me, there's two things that really saved the hobby to the point we are now, and I think it was grading and breakers with wax. I remember, I'm sure you do too, a time period where wax was readily available. Stuff was not selling at the breakneck speeds it does now. Shelves weren't getting cleared off, and then breaking came along and sort of changed that game as well. We companies can't seem to make enough wax product to suit the demand, and so between the grading industry and the breaking industry with wax, I think both of those, they came along at different points. Grading was first, but I think the combination of both of them now have really gotten the hobby where we see it today. That's not to take away from the purists, like you said, that just collect cards in their raw form, have no interest in grading, don't buy into breaks, which I don't even do myself very much, but I do grade. I like I say on this show all the time, is hobby as you choose, just do it the right way and above board. But I think grading and breaking, both of those have been huge catalysts to where the hobby is today. And we just went through we're still going through a pandemic, but yet the hobby had probably its biggest growth year, and I think those two things are huge reasons why.
Oh, absolutely. And to be clear, I have no problem with how anybody collects or does their business, so long as it's on the straight. But breaking absolutely draws in a ton of attention. The only thing it inadvertently did, and it has nothing to do with the breakers, it's not their fault, is had the company start watering down the products. They're more geared towards the breakers, which is a completely different conversation, but that has nothing to do with the breakers. They did nothing wrong as far as I'm concerned. They provide a great service to the hobby, and maybe the guy that can't buy $1,000 box of Prism, which seems to be the norm now. Anything decent is 500 or above.
Yeah.
Can get into a break for $20, $100, whatever it is, and potentially hit big. So, no, I appreciate the breaking industry. There's a few really, really good guys out there. I myself don't really participate in that too much because I'm not exactly a lucky man. So to me, it's just basically just be throwing my money out the window.
We're going to step away for a quick break, but we'll be back with more from Matt Greaney.
Sports Card Nation Podcast is your weekly hobby and sports podcast. Now on tons of platforms including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and many more. Listened to in 44 different countries globally, Sports Card Nation is one of the most interactive podcasts around, providing great content, giveaways, and some of the hobby's best interview guests without time constraints. Thousands can't be wrong. We want to thank all the wonderful listeners around the world, our awesome guests on the show, and our tremendous sponsors making us what we are today. Remember, without you, there's no us.
Sports Card Nation is back with My Slab's Matt Greaney. So, Matt, going back to your inventory, obviously when we both started, grading wasn't on, in effect yet, didn't exist. When, now, when you talk about your own collection now, what percentage would you say is graded to raw or not graded? If you could do it in your head.
That's tough, because like I said, I've been collecting my entire life. I still have commons from 1986 I pulled sitting in boxes somewhere. As far as stock that's readily movable, stuff that would fly off the shelves if I put it in a display, strictly because I still buy a lot of cases on the hopes of subbing, I would say probably only 50% or so is graded right now. But that doesn't include the stuff I've stored away forever. That's a ridiculous amount of stuff that I go through once in a while. Like I went through a few boxes. I started digging a couple weeks ago to pull, actually it was probably 2 months ago now, Fernando Tatis base out of Bowman Chrome, because I don't really pay attention to that stuff. But when they're $150 raw, it's time to look through the boxes. So I don't typically deal with grading base cards either. That's not my thing. I have no interest in coming home at night, going and relaxing and looking through 300 update base gems of any individual player. I like the rarer stuff, the more obscure stuff. But realistically right now, I'd say it's probably 50-50. I'm staring at a couple stacks of stuff I've been meaning to send in to get graded for a couple months right now. It's just with everything that's going on between PSA, BGS, and SGC for that matter.
They're all backlogged at the moment, so.
I got to play the game whether I think I can sell it all raw now and buy something that will appreciate faster than if I send the stuff all off. Hopefully it maintains value and doesn't tank. And, if I can sell the stuff raw at a premium right now and consistently turn over what I get for a decent number, I don't mind not grading all this stuff. That's just something you gotta weigh in your head every time you get a little tired of it.
It's a great point. I can tell you from firsthand experience. I'll be 100% honest. I've sent a grading submission in. It comes back for 3-4 months later, and a couple of those cards you're like, man, I would now with what happened, maybe they don't play anymore. They got sent down. The long term as projections kind of change, and you're like, man, I wouldn't if I was sending this in today, I would have never, that card wouldn't have made it to be graded, and here it is now, slabbed and back in my hands, And so there is a strategy, there is a rhythm, an algorithm to what you send in, when you send it in, knowing that unless you're paying that premium to get it back in a week or 2 weeks. What you send in the landscape may have changed by the time you get it back. And it works both ways. Sometimes you send something in that's pretty good, and then when you do get it back, it's even escalated up a few more notches too. So it's a double-edged sword. It's just sometimes when you fall on the sword sometimes too, and you got to take the good with the bad. But it makes you think about obviously what you send in when, and when should I expect these back. Do you have, when it comes to grading, are you kind of a one company guy? Not necessarily. Do you spread the wealth around, or?
Well, to be completely honest with you, I use BGS.
Yeah.
And I realize there's a million people out there that's going to say that's ridiculous. You won't get the same returns. And that's true to an extent. But my side of it is personal issues with PSA aside, and I have some of the same issues with BGS.
Yeah.
I'm fairly thorough when I look at the cards I send in. Like I said, they're not base cards. I'm checking everything before I send it in. I can typically pick out what is going to gem or higher.
Yeah.
And I can bank on X amount of BGS times coming back in. It's not complicated once you really, start looking at cards. Most people just get a 9.5 in, they look at it, say gem. They don't look at the characteristics, see what they can get away with, see what isn't tolerated.
Yeah.
I do that, and every once in a while, I'll throw 3 or 4 cards in my sub that I think are 9s, or I think are 8s. And if I'm spot on, or if I'm low on them, meaning, those 9s come back 9.5s,
yeah,
I can kind of dictate the next sub going in, how much money I can potentially get back. I send my cards in for fast turnaround times.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I don't want to wait a month, 2 months, 6 months. I like them back within a couple of weeks. I'll take the hit on the sub price, knowing I can control when they come back, and then I can bank on a certain amount of money, unless some guy breaks his leg or the market just completely dies.
Yeah.
That's how I play it. I just sent a couple cards to a friend. He's a major subber for PSA because they were larger cards, and I knew they would come back fast anyway.
Yeah.
But I wanted to see on one card in specific how they would grade it, knowing
how Beckett does it.
Based off of what I saw with it.
Yeah.
I thought it could 10. I wasn't going to be surprised if it came back at 9. If it came back at 10, that was great for me. It was a very expensive card. But it's right now, I'd lean towards whoever I knew could get my cards back to me faster.
Yeah.
Because some of this is just ridiculous. Some of these guys are out 6 to 8 months for their subs.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I've never had to wait that long yet, but that's where it's trending. I know they're you see the ads, they're hiring more graders, they're expanding, they're moved into they got more space. So they're efforting. I believe all 3 are efforting the best they can. Some are probably doing a better job than others. They're different companies. They're not the same company. So it's competitive. Now we got a 4th. I know there's 10 or 20 grading companies, but generally the industry recognizes what we call the big 3, and then you have now CSG they haven't started officially yet, but they've built up their staff and they're throwing their hat in the ring. It'll be, I don't really want to talk to them about them. I just wanted to mention that every once in a while someone new comes along that tries to enter the arena. Be interesting. The difference with CSG, they do have a grading background, not in cards yet, but from the coins and comic book side, so they're not completely newborn, and so they're gonna try their hand at the card. We just talked about it on one of our other shows. They just got the 2 highest graders from Beckett to join their team, and so they're going for it, and it'll be interesting to see if they can get their foot in the door, and if they do that, what kind of impact are they going to make, and how will they affect the other 3? And it'd be someone who has graded cards, sells graded cards, buys graded cards. It's definitely going to be interesting to see It's gonna, it's not gonna be an overnight thing. It's gonna take months, if not years, to see how this storyline progresses, or if it does. And that's the interesting things of the hobby, Matt, is like these kind of storylines and seeing where this thing goes and what happens.
Yeah, well, basically, right now, I'd take anything with consistency.
Yeah.
It seems like every time these companies get a little into a little jam, they make self-corrections and tighten up on their grading standards, or raise prices. The tightening up on graded standards, I don't personally understand, and I don't think that's something the hobby should put up with.
Yeah.
If you're telling me you have a sliding scale,
that's the problem.
From year to year, depending upon how things are going, I have an issue with that. A 7 should be a 7.
Yeah,
every month.
It's integrity.
Year.
It's an integrity issue. You're saying like you change your integrity based on surrounding circumstances or whatever.
And what does that say about the cards that were previously graded?
Yeah.
It's a mess right now. I'd take any grading company that like I said, was consistent, could return subs in a timely fashion, and I totally get being understaffed. And having to train people, but the other point of that is we're 20 to 25 years deep in this. Some of this stuff should have been thought out.
Yep.
And the other thing I would love to see, although no company I believe will ever fully commit to, is some sort of computerized grading. Because obviously if they turn around and go to computerized grading, you don't get that millions in resub money.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with it all being done by humans.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Just some level of consistency, I think, is needed, because there's no reason you should be able to send an 8 from any company in to the same company or a different company and get a 10.
Yeah.
Or, a 9 become a 3, which people listening are probably saying, well, that doesn't happen. It does happen.
Oh, yeah.
I keep all this information stored in files as well, just kind of for my own amusement. But just consistency. I mean, if you can give the industry consistency as a grader right now, you'd come out king. So I don't know what anybody's doing to do that, or if they're doing anything to do that, but it just frustrates me. Sorry to go off on a little bit.
No. I appreciate that. That's why I have you on. I know you know your stuff, and I want to hear your opinion. I'm sure others do too. Just real briefly, my opinion on the automation part. I'm not it hasn't happened yet, but the thought of it, I'm not a particular fan of. I know the analogy I always use, Matt, is I know in Major League Baseball they always flirt with Quest Tech and those the computer ump, where it crosses the strike, and there'll be no umpire behind the plate calling balls and strikes. It'll just be Quest Tech. That makes me, I get it, I understand, it's 2020, technology is huge in any industry, in life in general. When we look at our phones, and every year the phones are just mini computers in our hands, and the cameras on them are better than digital cameras that are made just to take pictures and not talk on, and just the technology is advancing at every year at a breakneck speed. I get technology. I embrace technology. I just it makes me nervous. That's probably the best way to word it, is that what if the computer's off that day, or what if something happens? I don't know. There's something to an actual person looking at the cards with a lens, with magnification, that I believe or not, some people might take the opposite side. I actually feel more comfortable, I think, than maybe a computer. I guess it depends on the system, not that they're going to go over everything, but I guess how the system works. And I'd love to see like a trial where a human grades it, and then they run it through this automation and see if there are differences and what they are, and how that down, up, in which way. I guess I'm a little resistant to change when it comes to the grading process. Sure, we've all been there, right? We get a card back that we thought should have graded higher, and we're cursing whoever graded the card, right? We don't know who they are, but we're like, oh, that whoever it is, man, they dropped the ball here, terrible, So I get both sides of it. I just, I guess it's just how it's done, and to the precision it's done, it remains to be seen. And so I'm sort of a little resistant, but I'm also open-minded enough because of technology being as advanced as it is. I'm not totally closing the door. Just makes me a little bit nervous to how that's going to function and that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, there would have to be checks and balances in there, obviously. Yeah. But for me, if I'm looking at it, the technology is already in place. Many industries use it as far as measurement, centering. So realistically, I'm no technological whiz. I'm actually terrible. But I know that every set that comes out, a prototype could be sent or measured. The system would recognize it and go based off of that. That being said, if something happened, and this is high-end technology. If something did happen, say with the grading program that day, that's correctable. Somebody's probably going to notice that. With humans grading, there's so many different emotions and things that go into why a grade comes out the way it is.
Yeah.
Each set of eyes looking at it is going to have its own interpretation. And then the things like, did this guy have a bad day? Is he going through a bad divorce? Did he stay up too late last night? Is he overly happy? Is he in a really good mood today? Is that 8.5 now a 10? There's just a million different things with us doing the grading that can alter the card. And again, I'm not completely against keeping it the way it is. Just maybe a little more consistency for all the way around from all three companies. Yeah,
and it's funny you said that, because I've said that on the show, is that it could be a simple, hey, a grader, before he left for work, he had an argument with his spouse, maybe over finances, and he's in a bad mood. Now it's in the forefront of his mind, and he's looking at your card, but he's stewing over what happened this morning, right? Same thing in reverse. What you said, maybe they're on cloud 9, right? And it's like Oprah. You get a 9.5. You get a 10, right? And I've always said, as much as I want high grades, that's why I look at my own stuff with a magnifying. I wear glasses that have magnifying lens and a light, and it's kind of goofy, but that's what I do. And I try to. I believe I send in stuff that I think going to check off those boxes, but I don't want anything just given to that kind of, like you said, you spoke about integrity issues. I don't want anything just handed to me. I mean, if that was the case, I'd just send in a lot more stuff. But then what happens in the end, right? Just gets watered down, and so you want the stuff that 9.5, 10s that are worthy of those grades, and not just kind of given out too loosely. And so I think emotions do play a part when with the human element, where emotions are a huge part of everybody. I'm not even talking about grading, just in life in general. And so I have a hard time believing, for grade. I mean, every person's different, and we have different mindsets, but I have a hard time believing that it can't take a little bit of your home life or what's going on in your mind into that grading room and be 100% I'm sure some are better at it than others, but I don't know if it's someone can say with 100% certainty. I'm sure maybe there does exist, laser focused, if you will, but it's hard. I know I would probably, I'm not saying I couldn't do it, but to do it every day, day in, day out, that's asking a lot, to be honest with you.
Well, emotions aside, it's what if you're overly tired? What if there's just a lot of things that go into it that I think can affect the grade, which shouldn't. But again, I have no problem with it staying as is if we can get a little more consistent. No, I
think we're waving the same pennant there. Another quick break, but we'll be back with more from Matt Greaney. Pastime Marketplace offers a line of durable graded card cases made for collectors who want high-quality graded card storage. that is virtually indestructible. Their cases are waterproof, dustproof, airtight, and designed to protect your valuable collection. Check them all out at www.pastimemarketplace.com. Protect your best with the best. And remember to save 10% off your total order. Use the promo code SCN10. That's capital S, capital C, capital N, 10 for 10% off your total order at pastimemarketplace.com. We are back with Matt Greaney from Ice Labs. You know, even if it's just the conversation we just had, Matt, sort of made me a little bit even more open to an automated grading process. Again, assuming like all those parameters are good, and it kind of takes that, you know, I almost want to, I'd love to see it. I know part of doing automation is sort of to take the human element out, but I almost would like to see, even after let's say the computer assesses the grade, a human takes a quick look at it, just kind of a like inspected by Inspector 12 type of thing, just before it comes off that line and gets slabbed. Just kind of make sure that you know what I mean. It doesn't have to be super scrupulous, but just you know, with some lenses, just take a quick gander. Here's what the computer said. Any objections? No. Okay, the grade holds type of a thing. And
no, I'd have no problem with that either.
Yeah. All right. So enough about all the grading companies. We're giving them free advertising. I want to talk about a site I've grown to love, and I bought some cards on it. I've sold quite a bit of cards on it. MySlabs.com. One thing I love about it, and I've moved a lot of my stuff. I'm not going to lie. I moved a lot of my stuff off eBay for this reason, is that 1% fee that when your slab sells, and that's just huge in this industry of high fees. And you know, we can get into the eBay's 180-day return policy, 6 months to return a card. We just talked about sending cards to get graded, and you know, in a matter of a month, that whole complexity of that card could change based on playing time or an injury, or you know, the person comes back to earth. You know, 6 months to return a card. We're seeing that. I don't know how closely you follow that, but we're seeing people buy a card on the eBay platform. That performance tails off, and they just make any excuse. Oh, not the condition it was advertised in, or you know, you've probably heard it too. People actually intentionally damaging a graded slab, saying it came that way just to send the card back. And you know, when you know just as well as I do, when you have money involved, people will do unscrupulous things to either get it back or make it. And I think eBay leaves that door way too wide open. You know, you vet. I'm kind of singing the praises of your site, but you vet the sellers. You know, you have a no return policy as long as what you buy is what you get. You know, if it's a 9 Zion and you get a 9 Zion, then that's the sales transacted. And you know, I think it's well done. I know I love the site. I just kind of I went off on a rant there, like an extra long infomercial, but that tells you what I think of the site. How did My Slabs get off the ground? Where did the idea come from? Like, just talk about where it all started.
Well, basically, I mean, the idea of a site like My Slabs, you know, not necessarily as specific as we are, has been talked about forever.
Yeah.
Basically, a group of us got together and discussed the issues you mentioned, all the returns on eBay, all the, I should say, fraudulent returns, you know, sticking sellers with the final sales fee, the high sales fee, the unethical purchases and returns, the lack of protection there. A bunch of us got together, you know, we're talking and said, you know, it could be done. We could have a site that could do this, but, you know, how long would it take to get off the ground? We got discussing it and decided, you know, when we launched last March of 2019 is when we launched the welcome forum on Facebook and kind of released the site to the public. We figured the timing was perfect. I helped run a couple high-end forums on Facebook.
Yeah.
And the problems that other sites have, other marketplaces have, are expressed and discussed every single day in these forums. And we're not talking about some guys getting hit up for a $50 return and it aggravating them. Some of these guys are getting hit $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 returns, and it affecting their life. Like this, you think you have that money, and then 6 months later, all of a sudden, you're getting a charge back. That's not right. That is about as unethical a business tactic as I can think of. And really, we thought we could do better with our connections, the people we knew throughout Facebook, off Facebook, in the sports card world. So we decided to, give it a go. And the site was created. It still had, it needs a ton of work, a ton of upgrades, and we're working on those currently. But it grew pretty quickly. I think people were generally upset and sick of some of the same old BS on other platforms, and were willing to give us a try. And a few months in, it really took off. I think basically all my friends that helped me out, or helped us out rather, helped us promote it. We didn't really do any advertising up until like one Beckett ad in the middle of last summer. It was all
word of mouth,
member promoted. So it's, close friends of mine, they all know who they are. But it's basically the members at this point pushing the site along. The more people they tell, the more people join. So it's really, I guess it's a site unlike any others, where the members really had a hand in building it, and building it so quickly. So that's basically it. A bunch of us got together. We're upset with how things were going on other platforms. Thought we could do better, and basically just said, let's give it a go.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I love it. And I was, I'm not, full disclosure, I'm an honest guy. I didn't find out. Someone else tipped me off, like that knew I had a lot of graded cards and knew my frustrations with eBay. Probably heard me on this very show kind of going off on rants. And, someone messaged me, hey, have you checked out MySlabs.com? And I'm like, no, I have till you said something. And I went over there, and you gotta. What's nice is you can't just start firing cards on the site. That's not what it's about. You gotta be vetted. They back. They check you, make sure you're not unscrupulous in your dealings, which I think's a breath of fresh air, unlike other platforms that don't do that. And was happy to give my credentials and go through that process. And, started, truth be told, like I said, when I kind of introed this part of the conversation, I started taking stuff off eBay. And I wish, Matt, I would have found out about MySlabs even sooner than I did, because I start transferring stuff off the eBay platform and on the MySlabs, like you said, vetted, long as what the seller sells, what the buyer buys, and that's what they get, then the transaction's complete. You can't beat a 1% selling fee. I mean, that's just... I'm going to plead to you, don't raise that like everything else in the industry, but just tremendous. Like you said, you took the ills and the complaints and the negatives, and you made a site to combat those. And I think you did. I know you said you still got work to do, but very quickly, what you said, March 19th the site was launched, and so here we are in a year and a half, and I tell you what, I'm sure there were some growing pains and bumps in the road, but from a user's perspective, it's very easy to use. I mean, I can have a card up there now that I've obviously been accepted as a seller. I can have a card up there in probably a minute or 2 minutes. And as a buyer, you can search by a player's name, and you have a search function. So if you're looking for a particular card, doesn't take you very long. I'm trying to think. I don't have complaints. I know you got me a couple of times when I first started doing it. My uploads were not as crisp as they should be. I know I got a couple emails like, hey, clean it up. And
to be honest with you, that bugs a lot of people because they're used to doing as they please on other platforms.
Yeah.
But just so I can give a little clarification to people that are probably angered with before in this, our no return policy is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Thus far, it's worked out amazingly. But that being said, if your pictures, not you personally, but I mean our members, our pictures are cloudy, you have corners of the slabs missing, they're taken on an angle, part of the card is missing, we can no longer enforce the no return policy if somebody gets a card in the mail and snaps a corner off of it and it isn't shown in the listing. I can't possibly...
No,
I mean, I may not believe them, but I have to go by their word because it wasn't shown in the listing. I have no way of disproving that. I can't protect the seller at that point, and I have to protect the buyer.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it's almost as if the seller was intentionally covering something.
Yeah.
So we need clear, straightforward images, fronts and backs. I don't need your dog in the background or, your feet or any of that other stuff. We just need clean, crisp images. And they sell better, guys. It's nothing to get upset about. It's a little more professional. And it's put there to protect everybody.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, man. I've only brought that up almost in a but the scans I took with my phone were not good. I mean, I'm not saying I was right and you were wrong. It was me wrong, but I was using that to just illustrate that's how on top of stuff you are, and you should be. Like you said, you're guaranteeing a no return policy, but the seller also has to hold his end of the bargain up too. And I figured out what I was doing wrong. I corrected it, and now anytime I list it, they're usually good to first shot. And then the other nice thing is when you upload the photo, you look at it and it says is this okay, and you hit yes or retake. And so now I know kind of what's expected, and very simple process. It's not rocket science. When the few that got kicked back was me probably just hurrying and rushing and not taking the time.
I totally get that. People think I'm being a jerk, messaging them, think I'm being hard. It's only to protect you guys. I mean, if we didn't have this policy in place, I wouldn't care how poor. I mean, I would because it makes the site look bad. But I'm not doing it just to be difficult. I'm doing it to maintain the integrity of the site and help keep the money in members' pockets. I don't need to tell you how many emails a bad sale will generate. Nobody wants to go through that.
Yeah.
So when I say clear images, just try the best you can with your phone, scanner, whatever it takes, and you should be good.
No, and I appreciate that. I don't think that's a big ask. I think that's really a common sense sort of ask. Like you said, you want it to look nice. It's a professional site. As a seller too, you really shouldn't have your feet or your dog or your couch. You're not selling your dog, your feet, or your couch. If that's the case, you're marketing the card, and mine, I just didn't cut them. Sometimes I didn't. There's too much in there, and then other times, a couple of times I tried to get too perfect, and I cropped it too much. And then once I found that middle ground, the rest is all good. And so I think that's more not asking for more than you should. I don't think that's that's very reasonable. Everything I've uploaded recently went through smoothly, knowing what's entailed and what's required, and that's half the battle. And so I love my slabs. You're not a sponsor of the show. I'm just talking from user experience, and I'm glad it exists. I know, like I said, my eBay listings has been at an all-time low now, and I'm not complaining. That's a good thing. I look forward to continue using the site. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back. Let me tell you about Iron Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're your number one source for all your PSA and now SGC submissions. They offer various service levels at the lowest prices around. They even provide the card savers your cards need to be submitted at no extra charge. Their elite status helps improve turnaround times, and their chat rooms keep you abreast of your subs and the status of your cards. What are you waiting for? Contact Rob on Facebook on Iron Sports Card Group. That's Iron Sports Card Group on Facebook. Or get a hold of Rob on Twitter at Iron Sports Cards. All one word, at Iron Sports Cards. They'll take care of you. We are back with My Slab's Matt Greaney. I know you got things into work. I know you don't want to let everything. I have to ask the question, Matt. What anything you can talk about coming on the horizon with the site, or
I can't be specific for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
But basically, everything we have going in will make the site. I mean, I think the site is fairly user friendly now, but it has its hiccups. We didn't expect it to take off this fast.
Yeah.
So we're a little behind technology-wise where we think we'd be. Everything going in will make the user experience that much better, that much more fluid, that much faster. It's just going to make it a lot more user-friendly and a lot more convenient. So we're hoping to start rolling that stuff out here in the very near future. Again, I don't want to let on what this stuff actually is.
Yeah, no, I respect that. There's competition there. You never know. I get it. I won't hold you to that. But like you said, what you're doing is just going to make what's already there, enhance it, make it better. I know it's a fluid thing. Cards are transacting there, listed, selling. Well, do you know roughly, approximately how many cards are listed right about now? Obviously, I know that's changing literally. Could be as we're speaking right now, but just rough estimate.
Last time I looked at the Instagram update, I think it was 45 or 50,000, I believe.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how accurate that is right now.
Yeah.
It's a lot. There's a lot coming in, coming in one door and going out the other every day.
Yeah.
Which we like.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Yeah, and the more members we're, drawing in, obviously, that number just goes up exponentially. So it's a really big number. It's impressive. If there's something literally for everybody on there right now.
That's where I was going, Matt. You have really all sports represented: hockey, baseball, football, Pokemon, soccer.
Because that's the big thing right now. Pokemon. We have a ton of wax listed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That typically you can't find cheaper anywhere. I mean, some of the. I get a lot of emails in regards to some of the list prices, but people don't understand that's just a hang-it-out price.
Yeah.
It
can make an offer. Yep.
If you're submitting offers, you're most likely buying under eBay.
Yeah.
99% of the time.
Yeah.
The high list offers, I'm guilty of that as well because, quite frankly, I don't have time at this point to follow the market every day.
Yeah.
So I list my stuff out high. So I don't get hurt if some guy goes out and scores 50 points tonight or hits 3 home runs.
Yeah, this year especially, it's been nuts.
All it is people projecting their investment, so to speak, protecting themselves. Because on my slabs, if you have a card listed at market, say Cody Bellinger goes out tonight, hits 3 home runs, and that goes up 25%, but somebody buys it at that market price, you have to honor that sale.
Where yeah, and that's a great example because what happens on eBay, right? The seller's either going to say, "Oh, I couldn't find the card," "Oh, it's damaged," "It's not," or in reverse, right? What we talked about already. That now all of a sudden Bellinger, tears an ACL, right? The next game. And that card's lost sort of its steam and luster, and the buyer's just like, oh, I mean,
they are removed immediately. By the way, if you decide to do that business, and you don't want to pay for something you bought, you're gone. No warnings, you're gone.
No, you're doing it. Yeah, you're doing it the right way. You're taking all the other ills. I love it because you're taking all the other ills and complaints that you see on these other selling platforms, and you're saying, hey, we're the antithesis of that. I mispronounced that word wrong, but I think people get the gist. We're the antidote to that with this
We're
site.
we're basically trying to protect everybody in the best way possible.
Yeah.
There is a general consensus of what's right and wrong in the industry. Unfortunately, being on other platforms, it almost makes you anonymous. I mean, people will find out who you are.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing shows and you're not doing face-to-face and you're just using platforms to sell, you can get away with all that stuff. That's the bad side of the industry. We're making everybody accountable. That being said, we are still a secondary platform. A lot of times, people don't understand when there's hot cards, we'll have cards sell almost simultaneously on two different platforms, and at that point in time, a seller has to refund.
Yeah.
If he sold on the other platform first.
Yeah.
This aggravates some buyers. Like, some buyers totally understand. It is what it is. It does happen. I get several complaints saying, well, you guys said you check your sellers and they have to honor their sale. They do have to honor their sales. But in that rare occasion where somebody buys a card at, say, midnight while the seller's sleeping on, on, let's say, eBay, and they don't know, and it's still live on MySlabs, right now there's no way for them to know. Yeah. So if somebody else buys it on MySlabs, that's unfortunate. It really is.
And that does happen. I mean, with the way the market's been this year, Matt, people are searching all the platforms and buying multiple copies. I do that, so I know how that goes.
It has happened. It absolutely has happened, and I try to navigate it the best way possible. But my point to the potential buyer would be is, if he was issued a refund, he or she was issued a refund, and the seller was able to prove it was sold elsewhere first.
Yeah.
I can't turn around and ask the guy to not honor his first sale on another platform, because if I saw that in their feedback when I was originally looking for, through their application, and I'm checking their feedback, if I saw they were doing that on a platform, they wouldn't make it onto MySlabs as a seller.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to start asking them to not honor, the sale if it was done first elsewhere. It's just not the right way to go about things.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but that's what we want in our sellers. We want them to honor the first sale. What some of the buyers don't recognize in the few situations we've had is these guys are making less money selling on the other platforms. And they've come out and said, "Hey, look, I'd love to sell you this card, but it sold here first.
Yeah.
I'm taking less money doing that." And most people, I think, understand and would be cool with it. There are a few that are, nothing's ever going to please them, So, but again, we are working on something to also correct that issue, so it shouldn't be an issue for too much longer.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I already kind of alluded to this. What I've done is just to avoid even that, Matt, is if I've listed something on MySlabs and it was on eBay, I just ended that listing, because that was always a fear of mine. Like, what if, because I've bought cards like that. I bought cards on eBay and the same card on MySlabs, right? Without looking, obviously with graded card, they all have serial numbers, but I'm not looking at that. I just, hey, it's a 10, Saquon Barkley. I'm just making up a name popped in my head. I bought a 10 Saquon Barkley optic on eBay, and I want to buy some more. Hey, here's another good price that I can work with, and I bought it on MySlabs. It might be the same card, and so thinking that I even just with what I do, and I know it's not a necessary requirement, but just that fear of that, I just took it off. Took it off eBay just because I'd rather sell it, quite frankly, on MySlabs and pay the lesser fees anyway. So to avoid that from happening. But I can see it happening. I know it does happen. It's not, like you said, it's not the seller doing anything unscrupulous. It's, transactions happen when we're unconscious and sleeping. And that's the beauty of selling platforms. It's a store that's open 24/7. You don't have to be.
Well, I mean, when it comes to eBay, it's the largest marketplace in the world. And again, we're just in our infancy to assume that we can demand our sellers some of which, either make a living on eBay or, make money they really, really need. It's part of their livelihood on eBay. To ask them to start taking negatives just to honor sales that they sold basically second, it's just not a reality. It's not right. And I hope people can understand that. It doesn't make the seller shady. It doesn't mean we're not trying to protect the integrity of the site. It's just a situation that happens every once in a great while. And this, in my eyes, the best way to navigate it is to honor the first sale, because that's the right thing to do. I just ask any new members to kind of keep that in the back of mind. And again, we don't envision that going on very long. Not that it happens on a daily or weekly basis, but every once in a while it does happen. But we are taking measures to correct that.
Well, you're doing a great job. I love the site. You didn't pay me anything to say that. That's coming from someone that uses it. That's coming from personal experience. That's why I wanted to have you on, because I want to get the word out there. That's how I found out, was word of mouth. I believe, I think you'll agree, word of mouth is some of the best advertising you can pay for, and it's free most of the time. And so,
in particular in this industry, and we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, and so I appreciate you coming on, sharing some of the insight, kind of what goes on behind the scenes, where My Slabs kind of was born from. I always give the guests, Matt, the final word. Give out your websites, anywhere where people can find My Slabs, and or your personal stuff, anything you want to, your Facebook group page, anything you want to get out there for those listening.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come on, and realistically, I just like to invite everybody to come check out the site. I know people are hesitant to change. It's just human nature, but look at who's involved in the site, find out who's involved in the site, find out how much product we're moving. Go to myslabs.com and just check it out. If it isn't for you and it won't be for everybody, that's fine.
Yep.
But if you want to save money and keep more money in your pocket, check us out. It's a win-win for everybody, basically.
Yeah, no doubt. I love it. I'm going to continue to buy, sell, list on it, and I'm glad it's there for me and everyone else that does enjoy the hobby in that fashion.
Well, I appreciate coming on, John.
Well, I thank you. I know we play a little tag to make it happen, but we made it happen. Matt, I appreciate it. Stay safe, stay healthy.
All right, have a good night.
You too. One of One Card Shop offers a tremendous breaking experience, great customer service, and they're constantly pulling fire. Steve and his family take care of you like one of their own and treat you right. Anyone can break, but no one treats you like One of One. Come check them out on Instagram at one_of_one_card_shop. For all the hot breaks, get a gold mailer headed your way.
I know the chunky that left these chunkies. Newman! Open the door, Newman. I know you're in there.
Hello, Jerry. All right, it's time for Newman's Rambling, where I select one question I get each week and answer it on the air.
John, you seem like an astute man.
Thank you, Mr. Walken.
Maybe you can help explain something to me.
Well, I'll give it my best shot. Got a great question this week from Matt Jones. It came via email. And I answered the question already to Matt. I emailed him back. But I also asked him, hey, can I use your question on my Newman Says segment? And he gave me permission. So here we are. And Matt asked me a great question. He goes, what's the etiquette when you're at a show and you're looking at a dealer's cards, they're raw cards, and you're interested in buying them, but you want to submit them for grading? Can you take out your magnifier, your loop, or your magnification device and look at the card? And then he also, he elaborated. It was a longer email, so I'm paraphrasing here. He also asked, can you take it out of the top loader or take it out of the soft sleeve? And so I've been on both sides of the table as a buyer and as a dealer, and I've had people this come into play on the dealer side of things is, someone will ask me, hey, can I take a closer, that's usually how it's worded, can I take a closer look at this? And if they say, can I take it out of the top loader, can you do it? I'll generally take it out of the top loader or semi-rigid or whatever it is. I usually keep it in the soft sleeve and then hand it to them. If they want to take it out of the soft sleeve and look at it completely in raw form, I usually will do that as well, and crossing my fingers that they obviously don't drop it, which, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think if that's ever happened before. If it has, I can't remember specifics, but I think a buyer has every right to examine the card. I mean, if they want to pull out a magnifying glass, a jeweler's loop, what I wear when I pre-screen cards for grading, which are glasses with magnifying lens that I pull down with a light. I've never seen anyone use that at a show. When I've bought at a show with maybe grading on my mind when buying a raw card, I generally try to look at the card in the holder it's in, whether it be a semi-rigid, just a soft sleeve, or a top loader. And, I've probably asked a few times if I could take a closer look. And again, the dealer will take his card out of the top loader. I think it's bad etiquette, bad form to do it yourself without sort of asking. Obviously, if it's a card that's in a showcase, the dealer has to get it out for you. You got to ask to see it. But if you want it removed from the top loader or whatever the holder it's in as a raw card, I think you need to at least have the decency to ask the dealer, hey, can I take a closer look, or can you take it out of the top loader? Can I see it outside the top loader? Most dealers will accommodate you. I know I've always done that when that's been requested of me, and you just hope, someone doesn't drop it and damage it. And what do you do then? I don't know if you can make someone pay for it, but you can say, hey, I really don't appreciate, you dropped the card and this happened if something did happen. So I don't, again, to kind of wrap things up, I don't think there's a problem doing that. But just use etiquette, ask, be polite. If a dealer was to say no, it's his card or her card. You're not obligated to buy it, and they're probably not obligated to take it out of the top loader, and then you have to weigh that decision. I've always tried to kind of look at the cards in the case they're in, but I'm sure I've asked to get a closer look. And a lot of times when I purchase cards from a dealer, I generally know the dealer already from doing the show circuit and being in the hobby a long time. And so I have a different sort of relationship with them than maybe just an everyday Joe that comes up to the table that the dealer doesn't know. But I think just be polite, be upfront, don't be sneaky about it, and that's your best bet. It's a great question, something we all should think about when it comes to the grading landscape. So there you go. Thanks, Matt. Great question. Well, that's going to do it for episode 101. That's still weird to say. We're in triple digits, but had a great time talking with Matt Greaney from My Slabs. That's a site that's taken all the ills, like I said, from other sites, things we complain about as consumers, eBay and other platforms, return policy, the way they handle business, and they've almost perfected it. I'm going to say it. They've really, if I was to pick everything that bothered me about selling platforms, they've sort of checked all those boxes. And so kudos to that group. Like he said, he alluded to, there's some things coming down the pike. I see that site growing exponentially, especially as the grading card market grows as well. I mean, that's their forte. So again, thanks to Matt for giving the show some time, letting us in a little bit behind the curtain on how it all got off the ground. And if you haven't checked that out and you're into graded cards, buying or selling, check it out. Like he said, they also have wax on there. I have some wax listed on there, and great site. So with Sports Card Nation, we're back to not live, if you will, but I'm going to tell you something. We're going to do more live shows. I don't know how many. Once every 2 months, once every 3 months, 4 times a year. But that episode 100 went well enough, and it was sort of a trial run to see if I could do it and not change the show too much to what we know it as, because I don't want to do that. And so I think, depending on when we can schedule a guest, I'd like to do, if I'm going to do a Sports Card Nation Live, I'd love to do it on a Thursday or Friday, the end of the week, and keep it then. And so look for a future Sports Card Nation live episode. We got a lot of great guests coming next week. Ivan Lovegren from Go GTS Live. Everyone knows Ivan, a good guy. He's going to come on the show with me, and we're going to talk who knows what. We're going to probably cut it up a little bit like we sometimes do when we chat with each other. And been looking forward to having him on the show for a while. And so the long wait is over next week, next Friday, Ivan Lovegren. And we got some other guests coming down the pike as well, as we continue to try to bring you the best guest list we can, the best content we can. And again, thank you out there for allowing me to do it. It's a labor of love, a passion, and without you, we're not here. So we'll keep the closing short. We'll end on that high note. Again, everyone, thank you. We'll see you next week with Ivan Lovegren.